Hello and welcome to another Growing with God video. Today we're going to be answering the question, are there enemies among God's people? So, in Matthew chapter 10 verse 36, Jesus Christ told us that it is not only those who are outside of God's arrangement who are against God, but it is actually more so those who are actually inside God's institutions who are the biggest threat to us Christians. He said in this verse, "And a man's foes shall be they of his own household." But the thing is, when most people imagine, let's say, a church, they usually imagine a place where everyone inside that church or institution is equally righteous and they're all devoted to God, worshiping Him, and so on. But it is important that we realize that in every single one of God's institutions, there will always be bad eggs. We even see this with some stories in the Bible, like, for example, in the room of Rebecca, a woman of a righteous family. We see in Genesis chapter 25, verse 23, that there were two completely different people in her room. We have Jacob, who was very righteous, as we know, but there was also Esau, who was a bad egg and was never really in support of God's plan. And plus, there were also other examples as well. We see how among King David's servants, there was an unloyal person, Ahithophel. And if we read Psalms chapter 41, verse 9, and John chapter 13, verse 18, we see how Ahithophel and David's relationship actually typified another traitor, let's say, in God's institution, who was Judas Iscariot, who was the evildoer among the apostles who betrayed Jesus. And we see in Psalms chapter 41, verse 9, "Yea, mine own familiar friend, in whom I trusted, which did eat of my bread, hath lifted up his heel against me." And there are also other stories in the Bible that show that unrighteous people can also be the majority in righteous institutions. Like, for example, we see this with the 12 spies that were sent to spy out the promised land that God had given to the Israelites, where only 2 of these spies were righteous, and the other 10 spies sent out an evil report. We see the story in Numbers chapter 13 to 14. And it is things like this that are the reason why Jesus Christ said in Luke chapter 13, verses 23 to 24, that few people will actually be saved. Verse 24 reads, "Strive to enter in at the strait gate, for many, I say unto you, will seek to enter in and shall not be able." But what makes things even harder is that it may be quite hard to tell who's actually righteous or not, because it is truly only God who actually knows the hearts of men. If we read Psalms chapter 44, verse 21, we see that humans simply don't have this power. This verse reads, "Shall not God search this out? For he knoweth the secrets of the heart." And this was why the apostles in Acts chapter 1, verse 24 and 25 had put it in the hands of God to make people's intentions clear to them, because they simply did not have that spiritual power to know exactly what people were thinking. You know, many of these people, they may be the ones who never miss church services. They're the first to spread the gospel to those around them. They may be donating to the poor, donating to charities, but on the inside, they don't really mean it, and they're only really doing it for validation. And we see people like the Pharisees, they were exactly like this. And Jesus Christ called them out for being like this in Matthew chapter 23, verse 25, which reads, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye may clean the outside of the cup of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess." So this means that we should try our best not to be distracted by some of the outward shows that some hypocrites might try to put on, but instead we should try our best to look for the actual righteous men among us who are actually sincere about their worship, not just doing it for validation, and then we associate with them instead. And this is how Christians can be as wise as serpents, as Jesus Christ said in Matthew chapter 10, verse 16, which reads, "Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves." And the bright side is that when we do this, Satan can no longer use, quote, wolves in sheep's clothing, if we read Matthew chapter 7, verse 15, to try to deceive us. But anyway, I think I can stop here on answering that question. Are there enemies among God's people? The answer is yes. But anyway, if you have enjoyed this video, learned anything, it would be great if you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and also to hit the notification bell so you'll know when new Growing with God videos are released. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next one.